Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always. It's your host, Matt Zahab, still coming in hot from the one and only Toronto. Folks, we have a scorcher here today. It's going to feel like 39 degrees. It's 29 Celsius, feels like 39. And that is a nice little 10-degree delta of humidity, aka walking outside. I have a little saying called ETS, embrace the sweat. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're just going to be embracing the sweat. It's going to be a leak show. And you know what? Much better than minus 29, so can't complain. Super pumped to have the one and only Chen back on the show today for round two. CEO and co-founder of Injective Labs, the core contributor to the one and only Injective, which you guys all know. Before founding Injective, he worked as a cryptography researcher and trader at Innovating Capital, where he led market-neutral trading efforts in the blockchain space and invested in prominent companies such as 0x, ChainLink, and Cosmos. Ever heard of them? Eric possesses extensive knowledge of blockchain protocols and traditional finance, along with a deep understanding of both Eastern and Western blockchain-based protocols and communities. That is a low-key flex right there, too. He was also featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2023 for his significant work with Injective and studied finance and comp sci at NYU. Eric, always a treat having you on, brother. How you doing? Welcome back to the show for round two.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Pumped to have you on. It was great to meet you very briefly in Austin as well. You and I were talking about that a little bit before the show started. It's a cool city, eh? Like very quaint. If you didn't really know, because of all the buzz around it, you'd think it's this like massive city, but sort of like a small, super cool city with just a classic American suburb. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
How good was the food there though?
Oh yeah, I couldn't get I couldn't get the end of it. Basically, I was just, like everyone else is bar hopping probably. I was just barbecue hopping. I was only there for like a day or two, so like I didn't really have a chance. So like I just like jumped to like the next barbecue joint I could see or find on Google Maps. Just making the most out of it.
I love that In and Out. I mean, Terry Black's. That was just what an operation. I'm sure you went to Terry Black's, to TB's, but like the amount of smokers they have, and these smokers, they're like old gas. I don't even know what you call them, caskets or whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they custom build a lot of them too, right?
Yeah. Pretty darn cool. Speaking of conferences, what's the next one you and the team are going to? You guys going to be at Bitcoin Nashville?
I don't think so. I would have to check on that. I think we're going to be at Brussels. And then like afterwards, like obviously DEF CON, et cetera. There's a bunch of stuff happening, for this year, a lot of travel plans. Certainly not looking forward to like the travel aspect of things, but generally excited to like meet new people and, chat with everyone in real life.
Do you feel like the crypto conference buzz is back? I at least felt it. Being at Token in Dubai, being at Consensus in Austin, the energy's back. People are like excited, horny to build again, whereas last couple of years at conferences, it was sort of just like everyone was sort of a Debbie Downer. Are we in the same boat here or am I way off?
Honestly, okay. So like coming from someone who has like observed like these conferences starting from like, I would say like 2017-ish, 2018 maybe. Just seeing it year after year, especially something as consistent as Consensus, where they always have like a event within the US every single year, you kind of see like the evolution of things, right? Yeah. Consensus during the peak of bear market, when like there were a lot of bankruptcy and collapses, and then like you slowly start to see revival, and then in the past, like it's just a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, and oftentimes it's to some it might be to the point of like nauseating.
Yes.
But I think what's really, really interesting for this year, after observing so many like conferences in the past, is that the maturity has been increasing and improving time over time over time. Before you would see like a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. You would see a lot of like ridiculous quote unquote things. And then like, these days it's like in a very, very good way. And, something that we always yearn for, somewhat like boring type of passion. Yeah. Where it's like everyone is just here being matter of fact, talking about like about utility or like, some potential like general business deals or, like some like general like exciting product reveals and stuff like that. You don't see like crazy like Lambo cars parked all over the, like the entrance of the conference and stuff like that. It's about like people are going to the conference to get things done, to meet with each other. Yeah. And people actually going to the booth to like understand and study up.
Yeah, definitely a big change. My only big nag, and I will be completely candid here, is the selfishness is the wrong word, but the sort of self-grifting how can I explain this without being an absolute prick? You know, when you like you want something from someone, there's a certain way to get that. You know, like there's a certain way to position yourself, use optics, use some qual and some quant to get what you want from that person, or at least make the intro, open the door. So many times it would just be like me going up to you and being like, "Hey, how's it going? Good. So this is what I do. Like, can you help me?" And it's just like, man, you know, I appreciate the candor on one point, but on the second hand, it's like, what are we doing? Like, we gotta, you know, just be a little more personable, be a little more empathetic. Like, put your feet in my shoes. Do I want you coming up to me and just pitching some nonsense to come on the pod or come on Crypto News? No, like, give me something in return. Did you feel that at all? Or again, am I just in my own boat here?
That's actually pretty interesting. So depending on it depends on like the specific session or like the specific type of engagement. Let's say it's like like a bunch of people like in like a very very jam-packed event where like you're trying to talk to everyone, get to know everyone. Basically, you would much prefer like jumping to the chase or like getting to the meat and bone of the conversation and just be like, what are we working on? Like what type of like potential opportunity or like what type of like magic that we can come up together. But at the same time, like during like more one-on-one or like during less crowded sessions where you're really valuing like human connection, you're really valuing like getting to know each other much better.
Yeah.
Then that's like when like jumping to the chase, it just kind of like becomes like a little bit unsettling.
Yeah. No, well said there. Anyways, enough on the crypto conferences. We've given crypto conferences a little too much FaceTime and airtime here. Let's get right into DeFi. Before we get into Injective, obviously you guys, one of the world-class teams in DeFi, really, really on the ball and focusing on sort of the convergence of DeFi and TradFi. I absolutely love this. This is a huge area that we need. And again, you guys offer very unique advantages over TradFi. Institutions, we'll call it, offering new crypto solutions, tokenized RWAs, super, super cool. Before we get into sort of the micro stuff, I'd love if you could give a macro overview of what's happening in DeFi at the moment and how you guys specifically, or just the market as a whole, is moving and grooving to really converge TradFi and DeFi.
Yeah, I think recently, for the past year, the general theme has been, institutionalized DeFi, more institution integrations, more adoptions, more extremely large financial institutions with huge asset under management, like kind of peeking into the space, looking at utilities, looking at deployments and stuff like that. And obviously over time it bleeds over into like a microcosm or like specific effects within DeFi that most people might not kind of like attribute that to the institutional interest. Great example would be like Athena got a lot of like interest from like the general community. People might not necessarily think that it's like a heavily institutionalized product or it has direct association for institutions, but it really is like kind of like effective the role of like institutions or like the ideas of TradFi products and kind of like offerings getting more tightly integrated with like institutional rails, et cetera. And that's what made Athena to become such a large phenomenon, right? And obviously, like there's a lot of very exciting stuff around like LSDs and also restaking, et cetera. Again, like that is like kind of like productization of a lot of these type of like financial activities that allows everyone to like aggregate the resources and create synergy. And those are typically like also like being packaged as a TradFi product to have it offered to like general TradFi people. For Injective side, obviously a lot of very, very exciting things. Recently, there was the INJ 3.0, there was the INEVM mainnet launch, there was also Helix 2.0, there was Mito mainnet, there's also Hydro mainnet, et cetera. A lot of stuff we're looking forward to, and also we're seeing a lot of like ecosystem projects building very exciting things like Injera. Overall and over time, it's just like it's getting harder and harder to keep up with like all those excitements going on within the space.
Yeah, well said there. I want to go back to Athena for a sec. Athena's offering crazy, crazy yields. Are we going to see, I think we are. I guess the better question is when. When will TradFi really adopt the much higher yields that crypto has to offer? Because again, to my knowledge, like it's really just sort of the risk basket where it seems a little too good to be true. You're taking more risk on by giving such a higher yield. Are we going to start seeing TradFi companies maybe even integrate crypto and blockchain into their payment rails, into their financial rails, and offer pretty friggin' high yields like it's happening in crypto? Is that going to happen anytime soon?
Yeah, I think definitely like there's been a trend of setting up all the like integration rails, all the fiat rails, and all the like institutional rails for everyone to invest, deploy, etc. Into the space to capture part of that high yield. But one thing to note, or one thing to remember, is that like those yields are high not because it's oftentimes like unreasonable, even though a lot of times some of them are.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, like most of them, if you just looking at it like without any type of low pass filter or like quality filter, it probably is. But like most of the high yield opportunity promising like let's say like beyond 10% or 20% of like APY, they're typically results of lack of incoming liquidity. So the yield is concentrated amongst like early adopters or like limited participation set. This also means that like oftentimes what most people forgot about TradFi because it's so mature and it's still it's so like like heavily kind of like participated or like heavily like transacted, is that any type of yield opportunity is rarely percentage based, with the exception of risk-free rate, right? This also means that like let's say like there is like a strategy or there is a capital deployment or there is a lending protocol that are generating, let's say, revenue of like $1 billion per year. And let's say like the liquidity or like the participation capital is around like 10 billion, right? Then it creates like a kind of like capital opportunity for like 10% APY. That being said, when you scale it up to 20 billion, most of the time, like the revenue will probably just be increased in like a like a diminishing return way.
Interesting. Interesting.
Where it goes up by maybe like even like geometrically like 1.1 or 1.2, right? So it's almost like a like type of like a sigmoidal curve in terms of like yield, because there is kind of like a threshold for like optimal working capital scale, and there's a threshold for like saturated capital scale. And because like there's not a lot of efficient participation or rotation of capital amongst like all the products out there, then like you kind of get that stickiness of like high APY. But as more and more institutions come on, you're probably going to see a lot of those highly attractive and sensible APYs going down over time.
So that's such an interesting point. I'd never thought about that. So there is a sweet spot when it comes to we'll call it AUM and how much you're growing. Like you really want to find that sweet spot to maximize your own profitability and the yield that you can give back to your community.
Exactly. And, at like a mature scale, and people like to say like, like finance textbooks or like econ textbooks aren't, too useful. But like generally like eventual convergence after like mature capital participation, basically like any type of yield above like the risk-free rate always carries like a risk premium, right? It doesn't make sense for you to go above, let's say, 4% or 5% per year. So what do you pay for that? You're paying for like additional risk. But obviously, like in a microcosm of things, it's typically not like a kind of like ironclad formula per se. Mainly because there's just not that much participation in those type of opportunities.
Interesting, really good point there, Eric. I want to jump into RWAs for a second. One of the trendiest topics over the last probably 6 months, I'd say, was sort of the talk of the town in Dubai for Token, a little bit of the talk of the town as well at Consensus in Austin. You guys are moving and grooving in that space as well. I've had some guests on who, I mean, everyone's bullish to some capacity, but a lot of people say it's going to be way further out than we think it is. Some people say it's going to be a lot quicker. What's your 2 cents on present day RWA and just sort of segue into what you and the team at Injective are doing to work on this as well?
I mean, like Injective recently had a mainnet upgrade that included the RWA module, and lets institution get access and create a bunch of structured products in like a fully compliant way. And the cool thing about it is that like Injective as an ecosystem is very much still DeFi centric. So this means that like composability and also basically like synergy amongst like all the existing primitive is the most important aspect of things, and that's why the module for RWA is specially designed to make sure that there's optionality for full composability while retaining the permission nature of things. And of course, we're seeing a lot more like RWA pairs across the Injective ecosystem, like Ondo, USDY, Gwen, Silver, Gold, GBP, Euro, etc. So in a sense, like for TradFi adoption or like institutionalized state of DeFi or the entire sector, It's going to be a lot faster than people think. I would put it at roughly like 4 to 5 years. When it reaches that type of like maturity scale where most people consider like crypto or like DeFi to be heavily institutionalized, to be heavily mature, to be well integrated within the global financial ecosystem. Obviously, like it's still like almost like a cyberpunk rebel in a sense. It still retains that property and characteristic, but it's not the ecosystem that's joining like the financial ecosystem, but rather like the other way around, which is like the entire financial ecosystem are paying attention and joining into the crypto ecosystem. Now that I put it, like 4 to 5 years is pretty far out, but like I think it's not like a binary type of process, right? It's not like either you're institutional or you're not. It's a slow moving, like gradual, probably like exponential, like a curve where like you start off seeing like very very early small promises, like people creating real world asset pairs or markets within DeFi. You slowly see like institutions participating in a lot of the DeFi mechanisms, and suddenly like within a matter of months, like everyone starts rushing in, and like the market gets crazy.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Whenever I have friends who ask me about RWAs because they read an article on Crypto News or they see something, see it on Twitter, whatever the case may be, they often ask me why. And I always try to give like some real world examples. And I'd love if you could give a couple, but one that I usually say is like on a less B2B side and a more, strictly consumer side. Let's say there's $1 million condo in Toronto and I have, there's 10 friends and we all want to own a chunk of it, 10% each. It'd be an absolute nightmare. It'd be nightmare fuel. It'd be beyond nightmare fuel to do that in the traditional way, going the real estate, the lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Whereas with this, it could literally just be done on the blockchain. That's sort of an example I give. And then there's ways of tokenizing things that are very hard to authenticate, like art, anything of the like, and anything, antique. But the one thing that is sort of tough is when they ask me about the pairs. And then they're like, well, why do I need to trade against it? Why would I want to trade against it? And that's where I'm like, well, that's sort of a good point for someone in TradFi. It's very hard to explain and depict why you would want to do that. So I'd love to throw the ball over to your court here. Can you go through how the whole tokenizing RWA trading pairs works for the people who might not be cognizant and aware of how that works?
So I think like, just looking at stuff available on mainnet right now, let's say, silver, gold, GBP, or like euro, et cetera, those sort of perpetual markets or those type of like spot markets, you're not trading against it because you're thinking that, like silver, gold, or GBP are, going to like collapse or like it's going to go to zero, et cetera. At least, like the majority of participants or like the majority of like the short interests are not necessarily purely betting on, like the collapse of those assets, but rather basically acting as like a hedge, acting as like a pairing, acting as like a risk profile allocation. There's a lot more like that goes into it. And also like more importantly, like those people who are taking on the short side are probably trying to meet the demand of like people trying to go on a long side by paying like a slight premium, right? The market could be like heavily skewed towards a single side of flow, since this doesn't capture like the entire like global transaction or trades. But what it allows for is adjacency of access for users are trying to have very easy access to these type of assets, or kind of like the overlapping point between those who participate in like crypto or DeFi, and also those who also like dabble in like TradFi. And I think like a great way to think about it, or like a great way to put it, is basically it doesn't make a lot of sense for RWA to take over a significant market share or replace in its entirety on its TradFi counterparts for large equity or like extremely liquid or extremely heavily traded assets out there, right? Let's say like NVIDIA shares or some type of like very very popular commodities. At the end of the day, like it's what everyone is integrated with. It's what everyone is used to. It's what everyone is basically like fully deployed into because of the clearinghouse structure. And this also means that like from like a utilitarian perspective, what RWA or like tokenization is trying to address is really, like the scantily traded ones, the long tail ones, and, figuring out value prop or coming up with like capital opportunities to unearth those type of like, long tail assets that are not getting enough love, or, that has higher potential than what it seems within like the TradFi desk or like Bloomberg terminals. And I think that's where really like the magic is, right? Let's say, like you have like real estate assets, or you have some sort of like very, very bespoke or some sort of very, very niche type of commodity, etc. I don't know, like Florida coffee beans or something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, like like the coffee beans commodity is like a heavily traded market out there within TradFi. But what about some like artisanal specific baskets, etc.
Something niche, something niche within the basket.
Yeah, and the reason why like users are super used to trading those through Robinhood, etc., or like getting like really, really strong price, or like getting like commission-free trading is because all those complexities and all those like upfront costs in terms of setting it up, offering those products, and like making it available to the end user are all abstracted from the end user themselves. And there's already been layers and layers of value extraction that happened already. And for those type of long-tail markets to be able to like deploy en masse to make it like available and like make it like kind of low cost to create, currently within the TradFi market, it's quote unquote almost impossible. And I think this is really where like crypto as a space really shines. Once you have like a compliant layer that can be like adopted by mass consumer, you also have immediate adjacency access to all those products that are previously either hard to access or gatekept or very, very annoying to access, like foreign assets, etc. And all kind of like reachable or like all like accessible within just one or two transactions, right? And the same case goes for like issuers. They basically immediately get like a globalized audience without having to deal with like the intricacies of like a global like like payment systems or clearing systems, dealing with like Swift and learning about like how Swift works, and dealing with all the legacy infrastructure that goes behind it, etc. It's really about like a low cost, mechanically superior like type of platform for everyone to get access to like a product that was previously kind of like underserved.
Well said. You guys must have some big dogs, TradFi big dogs, coming at you, asking for some RWA help, no?
Yeah, for sure. There's been a bunch, I think, really, but like the value opportunity or like, the true like value prop for users is not necessarily those like type of like big dog institutions that are offering like, or like doing like beta runs for like $1 trillion like financial or structured product, but rather, like being able to offer that product en masse as, semi B2C or B2B to have people create those products themselves for like those like less than like large or mega size institutions. And of course, like obviously, unfortunately, most of the institutions we're going to be chatting with are going to be the mega size ones, simply because they have like the type of like resources at their disposal to have like the compliance setup, to have like the risk tolerance.
Yeah, well said. Eric, you're on a roll here, my friend. We got to take a quick break and give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show, Prime XBT. We love the team at Prime XBT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is always offering innovative products and professional trading solutions and conditions to all customers. They are also doing an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. The promo code is CryptoNews50, and that will give you 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Eric. Eric, we got to talk about INJ tokens. That is your guys' native token. You guys just surpassed the record of 6 million plus Injective tokens burned to date. That is absolutely wild. I don't know many other ecosystems that have burned that many tokens that also have a relatively low total supply like you guys. The easy answer, of course, would be burn more tokens, token value goes up. But you guys are doing it for a multitude of reasons. You got to tell us why, because this is pretty bananas. You guys are burning tokens like it's going out of style. What is the methodology from burning all these tokens?
Yeah, I think the mechanism for the token itself is really like, like the result of the entire ecosystem stakeholders coming together and aligning on like the mechanism on like how the overall ecosystem and how like the overall like injective network can align in terms of value, can align in terms of like economic incentives. And basically, like one of the most interesting points is that like as a blockchain, gas fee being like the only type of like demand would only work for generalized environments, such as Ethereum, et cetera. And oftentimes, it's a fairly unstable micro environment, but stable macro environment. Basically, people compare or complain about like Ethereum gas fees here and there when it spikes up. But over time, like Ethereum eventually will converge towards like a sensible kind of like a gas ecosystem and gas marketplace, or user and developer behavior changes accordingly. And for Injective's case, it has a lot of built-in modules that's almost like a cheat code or like a golden finger for, like a specific type of interactions, use cases, or, specific type of like utility. And those modules are basically like these like optimized layers that allows users to, forever kind of like regardless of like whatever new technology that comes out, whatever, like kind of like a new scaling solution that comes out, to always have, the efficiency and cost advantage over other, because the chain itself has those type of built-in quote unquote biases towards, financial specific applications, right? What that kind of allows for is kind of like the coupling of value between the value that the network can support, the value that the network facilitates, and tying it back to the network itself in a more direct and more, straightforward way. And one of the problem for Ethereum, obviously, is that like the only way for like Ethereum, or like, the current accepted way by most to kind of like get like the share of value that or the economic activity that's happening on Ethereum in a more direct sense, is not necessarily through like the demand for computation, like, like storage, but rather through, the competition of those type of like arbitrage or like trading opportunities that gets manifested via like MEV, which is oftentimes, treated as initially like a negative sign. And these days people are treating it as, more of a bug to feature type of deal in a weird sense. And that kind of allows gas to be a proxy for like the value of economic activity. For Injective's case, it's just a lot more direct. And also, unfortunately, Injective's exchange module doesn't really have front running or, any type of those like, MVV related issues. So it's the more direct way to simply like burn it.
Why, unfortunately?
Oh, as in like compared to Ethereum.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to say, wouldn't that be fortunately? Because then you don't have people, you don't have block producers, miners sort of rigging the system to get as much cake as possible.
Oh yeah, for sure. Basically, unfortunately, in the sense of like, like gas is not necessarily the proxy for economic activity.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, like for Injective's case, like the burn mechanism is kind of like, like a nice marriage between like, Ethereum's native mechanism and also, like more utility centric or like a sector specific centric mechanism that allows for a more direct process.
100%. I would like to ask you about some things Injective related, but I mean, I don't even know where to ask because you guys have done so much since we last spoke. Many updates, Helix 2.0 upgrade, Injective's Volan upgrade, INJ 3.0 tokenomics, the burn auction mechanism. You guys are like literally becoming almost synonymous to Bitcoin in the sense of how deflationary it is. Gumi, the distinguished Japanese mobile company, you guys validator on POS blockchain. Like you guys are just moving and grooving. Is there anything in particular that you would like to discuss? Perhaps the most important update since we've last jumped on, because you got so many. I don't even know where to start here.
Yeah, I think like for start, like Helix 2.0 is always very exciting. It's kind of like the most major revamp and also like redesign of the overall like user experience for Exemplar, or like the flagship product within the Injective ecosystem. And the redesign is basically taking an extra step forward towards showing user that like, hey, like this is a fully on chain. This is like a fully, like a decentralized order book based exchange application and platform. But the user experience, the general like interaction, the general abstraction is almost identical to centralized exchanges. And what this allows for is, kind of like slowly convincing the user and convincing the masses and adjust their behavior for quality expectations and like, utility expectations for like what a DeFi app can look like and will look like in the future. There's obviously a lot of features, rolling out alongside Helix 2.0 that we've been spending a lot of time on. Yeah, like this is currently, something that I'm super, super excited about and super, super eager to like get everyone to learn more about it, to, try it out. And I think there's also a lot of like full-on 2.0 revamps for a lot of other products within the ecosystem. Mito recently launched a playground feature, which opens up like the vault primitive to everyone to access. Injective 3.0 token economics is basically like this new proposal that was very well received by all the stakeholders and validators within the ecosystem that basically adjusts and like allows for the establishment of consensus on the inflationary parameters over time to basically create a deflationary centric network ecosystem rather than like the default Cosmos perpetual kind of inflationary mechanism.
Yeah. And for the listeners at home, the new Helix 2.0, picture it as like beautiful front end. It has the front end and feel and usability of a centralized exchange, and back end is DeFi. It's exactly what you want, because you go on DeFi platforms, it's choppy, it's slow, it's nonsense. It's almost a little scary at times as well, because there's, it's so like sort of first run kind of thing, whereas this is just, it's absolutely lovely. So do go check that out. A couple more questions, my friend, and then we'll wrap up. ETH ETF. This is massive. Another huge step for crypto. A lot of people say it's not going to rip as much as Bitcoin, or it won't do as much as the Bitcoin ETF for a lot of different reasons. I don't know how much I buy that or not, but one thing for sure is this does underscore the growing legitimacy of the space. We're not just scammers and grifters and a bunch of clowns anymore. I mean, when you get the BlackRocks coming in the space, you're clearly doing something right. What do you think this means for us as a whole? The upcoming, well, it's already approval, but the actual launch of the ETH ETFs.
I think this is something that like the entire space has been waiting for. The entire space has been, building towards for like quite many years at this point. I think I remember people were like cheering about it or like anticipating it in 2018 for the Bitcoin one. And, it's like, like all the effort like paying out type of deal.
Yeah.
And obviously there were like a lot of understandable concerns on like hyper institutionalization of, an open and decentralized ecosystem, et cetera. But, focus on like the positive side of things, which is what this allows for and what this introduces. It won't be like a very shiny or like, exciting or like, very stressful like a volatility event, that like suddenly creates like a rush in like inflow of capital. But rather it establishes like a baseline of capital flow that, gets channeled into the ecosystem steadily.
Money in the space. Money in the space.
It's more about like opening up the water channels rather than like trying to pathfind more costly routes, right? And I think really it's more of a type of like logistics setup or like a general optimization. Obviously, an extremely monumental improvement and optimization of the capital flow infra that allows for any type of excitement or growth or adoption within the space to be reflected in a much more direct way and in a much more like immediate way from the overall like capital or financial ecosystem.
Yeah, well said. And last question here. H2 outlook, second half of the year, it's kicking off. I mean, your episode's going to air very close to July 1 nonetheless, but what do we got for H2? You talk about DeFi, talk about RWAs, Injective, whatever, but any hot takes, predictions for H2 for the second half of this year?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say like the institutional adoption side, where we're far from, seeing like the peak of it for this year even. Yeah. There's going to be a lot more like very, very exciting stuff from, stuff that we've been hearing about, from stuff that, people have been telling us. A lot of them are, going to come out and or pay off in like very, very exciting way towards, the later end of this year. On the other hand, I think DeFi as a tool, as an application, oftentimes gets challenged by like TradFi or CeFi counterparts on like a lesser of the other. Where like DeFi tries to do a lot of things, but like CeFi can do them equally well, or like can do all the things that DeFi can do, but better. And I think, personally with like Helix 2.0 and with a lot of stuff that are being rolled out, it's probably for the first time that demonstrates like there are a lot of things that CeFi cannot do. And there are a lot of things that, CeFi does not have access to, are not capable of executing that, DeFi can leverage. And by removing kind of like the shortfalls of DeFi application in terms of like general usage, like placing trades, et cetera, people are going to start noticing like all those advantages, all those amazing tools, where they're going to notice like, oh, like I can create like a TWAP, or I can like have like a pretty expressive execution bot, or I can subscribe into this liquidity vault and forget about it, or every day there's just like new guys like coming up with different types of like decentralized on-chain strategies or decentralized lending pairings. And, like that expands geometrically rather than, like a CeFi platform or product that just expands linearly based on like how many engineers they can grind out.
Damn, good point there. It's happening. I'm telling you, it's happening. Even price aside, I'm getting the amount of inbound that I'm getting from network, friends, family. In Feb, March, and April, it was strictly shitcoins. No one was like, teach me about X, Y, or Z. Teach me about Injective. Teach me about DeFi. It was just, yo, get me set up on Phantom. Get me set up on Deck Screener. How do I use Radium? How do I print money on shitcoins? People are literally asking good, solid, foundational questions now, and really curious about getting into the space. And we'd love to see that. Eric, you bring the heat every single time you come on. Can't wait to have you on for round 3. Always appreciate your time, my friend. And next time I'm in New York City, I got to pop by the office. You guys, the office looks incredible. You got one of the best. We've done 340 something episodes, and you have one of the best setups. So we'd love to see that too. Before we let you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally, and of course, Injective online and on socials?
Yeah, so I think you should be able to find all the socials, etc., on injective.com. And for me personally, you can just go on Twitter or X, I guess these days, at Eric Injective. And that's probably the best way to reach me.
Love it. Eric, thanks again, my friend. Always appreciate it. And can't wait for round 3.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Folks, what an episode with Eric Chen, CEO and co-founder of Injective Labs, the core contributor to Injective. What an episode. We talked everything institutionalized DeFi, tokenized RWAs, revolutionizing on-chain trading yields in crypto, burning tokens, H2 outlook, you name it, we touched it. Huge shout out to Eric and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys so much. Thank you for everything. Eustace, you are the man. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Enjoy the heat, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.